The journey to learning how to handstand can be extremely frustrating, especially if you've been at it for ages while others seem to be able to grasp it in mere weeks. If this is where you're at and you're wondering why can't I handstand yet, then this video is just for you. There are things that we can do as beginners to speed up our progress and skip past avoidable mistakes, so let's get into it. How are you doing, Cali Crowd? Welcome back to the channel that makes calisthenics simple. The handstand is a very neurologically demanding skill which makes how we learn to do it incredibly personal. That being said, there are mistakes that we can avoid to take our handstand to that elusive next level, and the first of those mistakes is not using the wall. At every level of hand balancing, the wall is probably going to be your most effective tool to support your practice. For beginners, this comes in the form of the back to wall handstand, where the goal is to become proficient in our handstand entry over time, needing to use the wall less and less, and the chest to wall handstand, where the goal is to understand how to express the best body line that our shoulders will allow. For many new to handstands though, it may seem more intuitive to just keep kicking up into handstands until one day you can hold it. This fake it till you make it approach can work, but the wall does give us the tactile feedback that we can use to tweak our handstands over time, and it's this feedback that allows us to learn faster. Kicking up too hard, we'll smash into the wall and we'll feel it. Not kicking up hard enough and we'll never get to the wall in the first place. Not elevating the shoulders enough in our chest to walls, our back will arch and it will be hard to hide this against a straight wall. Being aware and, more importantly, measuring this feedback that the wall gives us will drastically speed up how fast you learn how to handstand. Now, I do have to mention though that if we're not careful, the wall can go from being an advantage to a crutch. And if we get too dependent on the wall, it can be psychologically difficult to get away from it. It's important to practice handstanding in free space in some capacity, but finding this balance is a real challenge. So an example of what this looks like could be every handstand training session spending 20 to 30 minutes practicing in free space, followed by our more structured handstand drills such as 20-second chest to wall holds. The other thing holding us back is practicing on a soft surface. This usually is a symptom of fear of falling, where we practice on something like mats or carpets to give us that sense of safety in the event that we should fall. The problem is balancing on pliable surfaces becomes harder because we need to generate force through the fingertips and the palms in order to stay upright. This force dissipates on soft surfaces, making the handstand more challenging, in the same way that it's harder to stand or balance on something like a trampoline or a mattress. Instead, we can become okay with the idea of falling by practicing our bailouts. I have a whole video on how we can do this, but the crux of it is we can kick up with the intention of falling. Once we get used to falling safely, we remove the fear that falling has on us so we can practice with better quality. Not training enough is another reason contributing to a lack of handstand progress. The closest observable thing that we have to learning how to handstand is comparing it to a baby learning how to walk. To learn to walk, a child will attempt to walk or stand sporadically throughout the day. Sucks as it may sound to hear, attempting to kick up 2 or 3 times per week or whenever you feel like it simply won't cut it. Instead, I'd recommend training as close to daily as you can while still staying away from fatigue and failure. Unlike strength or hypertrophy, this isn't a matter of getting results by smashing ourselves into the ground. The more neurologically demanding a skill is, the more important quality practice is, which we cannot achieve if we're constantly fatigued or aching. Start with extremely small daily increments, 10 minutes of handstand work to begin with, and then add on 5 minutes for every week of consistent handstand training. Handstands are also one of those skills that benefits greatly from greasing the groove, so set up systems that allow you to handstand throughout your day. Why not attempt 2 handstands before any meal, or between every episode of anything you watch on Netflix? And be methodical with this practice too. Try and practice in the same spot in your house so that you get familiar with the handstand faster. Have a number of attempts that you want to try and note the seconds that you're able to hold it for. Just because you may handstand sporadically throughout the day doesn't mean that the quality of how you do them should fall. Low intensity, high quality practice with extreme regularity will ensure that you don't fall into the trap of not practicing enough. The next thing is probably what I see bog most people down when it comes to their handstand progress. The thing that allows them to get in their head and really frustrate them when it comes to handstand practice, and that is focusing on too many cues at once. As beginners to handstand, we're bombarded with all the must-do cues. Brace your core, point your toes, don't arch the back, squeeze the glutes, push tall, straighten the arms, look through the eyelids. This is all well and good, and these cues have their place when it comes to handstand practice, but trying to remember them all while trying to learn how to handstand in the first place is just too much for anybody. Instead, focus on whatever you have to do to maintain balance, even if that means your body line isn't perfect to begin with. Avoid these mistakes, and not only will you find that your handstand practice becomes more productive, but it will also become more enjoyable as well. But if you want to see how I personally learned how to handstand, making some of these mistakes along the way I might add, then check out this video.